So the sequel to Alien, aka Aliens, since they didn't call it Alien 2, which I'm pretty sure at the time was pretty much surprising. Like, you don't call a sequel that. Like, Star Wars called itself Star Wars Episode 4, then Star Wars Episode 5, then we got 6, and then we got Star Wars Episodes 1, 2, and 3. Like, you didn't just say, oh, let's remove the number. So I'm pretty sure that was a shocker for the time, but when here's my bet. I'm trying my best to put myself in the frame of what happened in the late 1980s. But if I was to take a best guess, I'm pretty sure a lot of people were concerned. Oh, a new Alien movie's coming out, and then the concerns started to sweep in. Like, but can it be great than the science fiction masterpiece we got from Alien, from the original Alien by Ridley Scott? And then we got to this strange guy named James Cameron, who was at the time creating Terminator, the Terminator movie. But then here's the thing: after what happened with the Terminator, I'm pretty sure everyone breathed out a huge sigh of relief, saying, "Okay, we have good confidence in this guy because Terminator helped establish Cameron as a major action director, and with that, 20th Century Fox said, okay, let's do it. Like, let's get this guy, let's get him to do this, because following the release of Alien, the idea of a sequel was almost immediately proposed. The project, chiefly endorsed by producer David Glyer and 20th Century Fox president Alan Ladd Jr., story ideas suggested included having the aliens survive its apparent demise at the end of the first film and return to Earth with Ripley. Another one was the second expedition becoming stranded on the planetoid and having to deal with multiple aliens. And a prequel telling the story of the space jockey and most radically having the planetoid itself explode. Now, the prequel part, that eventually would get made into the Prometheus saga. Like, initially they were going to make Alien Engineer and detail the story of what happened, how the space jockey got there. But we know what the space jockey is, but we don't know how it eventually went to LV-426, since in Prometheus it's on LV-223. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to explain that in either Alien Covenant or another Alien movie, because they're making a trilogy of it. So, we'll have to wait and see on that. And however, the sale of Fox to the new owner saw Ladd leave, and the studio's new management had little interest in creating a sequel, thus the project was stalled. So, then it led to, while completing the pre-production of The Terminator in 1983, James Cameron met with the producers, Geiler and Walter Hill, who were keen to work with the director after having read his Terminator script. Cameron pitched several ideas, none of which the producers were especially receptive to. As he was leaving, however, the producers mentioned that they were thinking of making a sequel to Alien. A huge fan of the original film, Cameron was very interested in crafting the sequel. All they said was, Ripley and soldiers, Cameron explained. They didn't give me any specific, just this idea of her getting together with some military types and having them all go back to the planet. The director entered a self-imposed seclusion to brainstorm a script. Much of the story he developed was based on an earlier script he had written titled Mother. According to Cameron, Mother featured a character very much like Ripley, had its own type of alien queen, ended with a final battle between the protagonist and Mother, while the main character was encased in what I later call a power loader. And then, that's what he said. Other key concepts recycled from the script for Aliens included a company, Tri-World Development Corporation, generally referred to as the Company, that funds inhabitation and resource mining of other worlds, the term xenomorph, and a strong maternal theme. The screenplay was also influenced by Cameron's simultaneous work on the script for Rambo First Blood Part 2. In particular, insight into the Vietnam War he had gained while researching the project. I wanted to do something different. Like, I'm going to talk about the production of both Aliens and Aliens 3. I didn't talk about the production of Alien, but I will say this. There was actually an alternate ending planned at one point by Ridley Scott in the original Alien, where it would have just ended there, and there would be no Alien series. It would have ended with the xenomorph surviving, killing Ripley, and then mimicking her voice to say it's coming to Earth. And I gotta be honest, what we we wouldn't have the 21 flavors of Kick-Ass that was known as Aliens. And while Aliens 3 and Aliens Resurrection, okay, I'll talk about Aliens 3, but let's never talk about Alien Resurrection. Um, yeah, the Xenomorph speaking, it's just kind of weird. I can't really picture it nowadays. So, yeah. So, after after 4 days, Cameron produced an initial 60-page treatment, then called Alien 2, although the Fox management again put the film on hold as they felt Alien had not generated enough profit to warrant a sequel. You got to have the monies. A scheduling conflict with actor Arnold Schwarzenegger caused filming of The Terminator to be delayed by 9 months, as Schwarzenegger was filming Conan the Destroyer, allowing Cameron additional time to write a script for Aliens. While filming The Terminator, Cameron wrote 90 pages for Aliens, and although the script was not finished, Fox was impressed and told him that if The Terminator was a success, he would be able to direct the Alien sequel. Terminator was a success! Cameron and Gal Ann Hurd were given approval to direct and produce the sequel to Alien, scheduled for a 1986 release. Cameron was enticed by the opportunity to create a new world and opted not to follow the same formula as Aliens, but to create a worthy combat sequel focusing more on terror, less on horror. Sigourney Weaver, who played Ellen Ripley, had doubts about the project, but after meeting Cameron, she expressed interest in revisiting her character. 20th Century Fox, however, refused to sign a contract with Weaver over a payment dispute and asked Cameron to write the story excluding Ridley. He refused on the grounds that Fox had indicated that Weaver had signed on when he began writing the script. With Cameron's persistence, Fox signed the contract and Sigourney Weaver obtained a salary of $1 million, a sum equal to 3 times what she was paid for in the first film. Sigourney Weaver even nicknamed her role in the Alien sequel Rambola, referring to John Rambo on the Rambo series, the second film, which was originally written by Cameron, and stated that she approached the role as akin to the titular role of Henry V, or women warriors in Chinese classical literature. Among the more obvious Vietnam influences in the film, in which the colonial marines, a technologically superior force are mirrored on a hostile foreign environment, their technology and training are now inappropriate for the specifics, and that can be seen as analogies to the inability of superior American firepower to conquer the unseen enemy in Vietnam. A lot of firepower and very little wisdom, and it didn't work. Yeah, it's a lot of the Aliens movie tends to play off of what looks like the Vietnam War. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, let's see. The Marines are getting their ass handed to them by the unseen force. Yeah, this is the Vietnam War, except in space. Except in this case, they barely survive, and I'll talk about the plot later. In the story of Aliens, the Marines are hired to protect the business interests of Weyland-Yutani Corporation, corresponding to the belief that corporate interests were the reason that American troops were sent to South Vietnam. The attitude of the Marines was influenced by the Vietnam War. They are played as cocky and confident of their inevitable victory before the mission. But when things go wrong and they find themselves facing less technologically advanced but more determined enemy, the outcome is not what they expected. Oh boy, yeah. I'm pretty certain someone very familiar, played by Bill Paxton, would attest to that allegory. Yeah. Oh boy. And I looked this up about Aliens, and it had an $18 million budget, and at Pinewood Studios, with production lasting 10 months. There were a lot of personnel and cast disruptions. Shooting was said to be problematic due to cultural clashes between Cameron and the British crew, with the crew having what actor Bill Paxton called a really indentured way of working. Cameron, who was known to be a hard driving director, and at the time was bound to a low budget with a release date set that he could not delay, found it difficult to adjust to working practices such as the regular tea breaks that brought production to a temporary halt. Okay. And the crew were admirers of Ridley Scott and may believe Cameron to be too young and inexperienced to be directing a film such as Aliens, despite Cameron's attempts to show them his previous film, The Terminator, which had not been released in the UK at the time. Scenes inside the atmosphere processing plant and the Xenomorph Hive were shot at the decommissioned Acton Lane Power Station in Acton, London. The crew thought it was the perfect place to film due to its grilled walkways and numerous corridors. The problems were encountered with rust and something else. However, then the crew was forced to spend significant sum of money getting the latter. The Alien S set was not dismantled after filming; was simply abandoned. The power station was reused in 1989 as Axis Chemicals set for Batman, created by Tim Burton. And when the crew of the Batman entered the set, they found most of the hive intact. So, yeah, the hive was intact for 3 years after the movie was already done. Yeah. At one point, one of the crew members mocked Cameron's wife, producer Gail Ann Hurd, by asking her who the producer was and insisting that she was only getting the producer's credit because she was married to the director. A walkout occurred when Cameron clashed with an uncooperative cameraman who refused to light a scene the way Cameron wanted. The cameraman had lit the Xenomorph Hive set brightly, while Cameron insisted of his original vision of a dark, foreboding nest, relying on the lights from the Marine's armor. After the cameraman was fired, Hurd managed to coax the crew members into coming back to work. Yeah, and actually, certain scenes where where you see the Marines bond on board the ship conversing, turns out that Cameron actually shot a scene and then afterwards still filmed it after the scene was shot just to get a more realistic vibe out of this, like to show a camaraderie and fun between the cast crew members to make the feeling more realistic and more brotherly and sister-like. Like, oh, they're all working on a project and whatnot, and well, we're having fun with this, and let's just do whatever we want on that. So Cameron kind of really, that was brilliant from Cameron's part. Like he seems to be more like a perfectionist when it comes to these kind of movies. Um, but yeah, it was interesting about how Cameron would film certain scenes without them knowing, because sometimes some of the, like, there have been known times that an accident would happen and they filmed it and it was just pure gold. One of the other famous ones was The Dark Knight, where Heath Ledger was pressing this button repeatedly because the bombs didn't go off in it, because the bombs at the building stopped, and he was wondering what was going on, and Christopher Nolan kept filming it, and then since it fit the Joker's character to just repeatedly press the button and just wonder what the hell is going on, and then everything perfectly fell into place. Yeah, it takes place in 2179, 57 years after the events of Alien, so that sucks. Ripley, the sole survivor of the incident on board Nostromo, is rescued and revived after drifting for, like I said, 57 years in hypersleep. Now, her testimony regarding the alien by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation is met with extreme skepticism, as no physical evidence of the creature survived, and she loses her warrant officer's license as a result of her questionable judgment, and learns that LV-426, the planet where the crew first encountered the alien eggs, is now home to a terraforming colony. Yeah. Now, there is one scene in here that if you looked at it now, you would think, oh, they were foreshadowing Aliens 3, where a chest burster in Ripley's nightmare starts to come out, and yeah, considering what happened with Alien 3, I'm pretty certain that was not planned in it. I'm pretty sure that was just to use post-traumatic stress disorder. But if you looked at it now, people might say, oh, this was all perfectly planned. This all fell into place. And no, it really didn't. I loved everything about this movie. This movie was generally awesome. Like, the action was great. It was so real, because how would we actually fight an alien that we have no knowledge on? Like, Ripley, while has some knowledge of them, she only seen it at face value. She's never studied them. She never had time to study them since, they were trying to kill her and everybody else. Um, and I liked Hicks, and I liked New, and I liked Hudson. I liked the android Bishop, played by Lance Hendrickson, who I found out was in The Dog Who Saved Halloween. And he was also Admiral Hackett from Mass Effect, and was in Terminator. And I'm wondering why he was in The Dog Who Saved Halloween. Yeah. And Bill Paxton playing Hudson was perfect. May he rest in peace. And his lines of how he's talked were so over the top at times for me. I was like, oh, this is going to turn into memes. I know that this turned into memes. Like, everyone makes jokes about this. Game over, man. Game over. What are we going to do now? What the fuck are we going to do? Why don't we just build a fire? Sing a couple of songs? Why don't we try that? Yeah, like, everything he did in this movie, like, he just kind of acted like less, like, he was so overconfident and cocky, and then when shit hits the fan, everything, he's, like, freaking out and doesn't know what to do. So, yeah, it's very interesting how, how he is. And, yeah, Hudson, Brooke, Gorman, and Vesks, I'm pretty sure I pronounced her name wrong, are killed during the climactic battle, while Hicks is wounded and Newt is captured by the aliens. But I really like Newt. Like, she looked like a great child actor, and I'll be just saying I'm disappointed what happened in Alien 3. I'll talk about that in a future video. And they indirectly say that, yeah, her brother's dead. Yeah, that sucks. So, on this heavily armed expedition that descends to LV-426, they find the colony damaged and seemingly abandoned, and 2 living alien facehuggers are found in containment tanks in the medical lab, and the only colonist found is a traumatized young girl named New. And I was surprised that, they never went into a scene where Hudson, I think it was Hudson that fired his gun. I was thinking, wait, where's the line where they're just going to say, oh, you nearly shot a kid. Way to go, Hudson. Like, I was honestly expecting that. But they never did that. And, yeah. I'm trying to also remember, like, I saw this movie just yesterday, and I'm trying to recollect my thought. Oh, yeah. A scene in the special edition shows a scene where Ripley learns that her daughter passed away 2 years prior to the events of Aliens, and we actually play her daughter in Alien Isolation, which is a good game, and way better than Aliens Colonial Marines of 2013. Yeah, that's considered the official video game canonical sequel. Yeah. So, and the Queen, like, there were a lot of the effects hold up, but, like, I could tell one scene where Ripley is controlling one of the exosuit cargo loaders at the beginning in the early stages of the movie while they're on the ship. Yeah, that was, yeah, I knew, yeah, that's fake, because you see the black outline, and, yeah, so, yeah, I was like, okay, that's going to play a role in the big battle to come with the Queen. Yep, that played a big battle in the role to come with the Queen. And I was always wondering how the Queen got stowed away onto the dropship's landing gear. Like, we never saw it get in. So are we supposed to just fill in the gaps ourselves? Yeah. And Ripley defeats the Queen by basically tearing the Queen from the vessel into space through the airlock. And Ripley climbs up to safety, and she tries to go to New because for some reason the aliens seem interested in New for a little bit. And Newt calls her mommy, and I was like, I like the bond between them. It's like a mother-daughter relationship, but at the same time, I'm thinking, yeah, Newt just recently lost her parents. She wouldn't just call Ripley mommy so quickly. Like, you could make the argument, oh, maybe she was unconscious and thought her mom was still alive and protecting her from the alien. Like, that could have been a reason, but it clearly was shown that she was conscious and knew it was Ripley, and she wasn't unconscious at all. And Bishop being portrayed as the ultimate badass in terms of able to survive being ripped in half. Oh boy. And Hicks, he gets scarred from the acid, and so they're the 4 remaining survivors, and they prepare to enter hypersleep to go back to Earth. Okay, if aliens stopped here, I would have been perfectly fine with that. However, there would still be an issue left because you have Weyland-Yutani and whatnot to deal with. But that would be the one thing that you would have to deal with. But what we got in the sequel after this, yeah, I'll talk about that in the next video. But I will say that Aliens' ultimate success was Alien 3's ultimate problem. Well, one of the ultimate problems. I'll talk about that in the next video. So, those were my thoughts on James Cameron's Aliens. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more.